Hi everyone. All right, I guess I'm live now. Thank you so much for your patience for waiting. There was some technical difficulties and I had to call Crystal up to get her to help me with this video. So I had to download and update. I had to update my Chrome. So I hope everything will work right now. Thank you so much for waiting once again. Let's begin. I'm a little frazzled, but let's go ahead. All right, good morning everyone. Thanks for joining me today at the first, my very first eco poetry reading with Thrive, our community corner. Please let me know if the volume is okay. Hi Sheila. All right, let me know if the volume is all right. If you can hear me clearly, then I will continue speaking at this volume because I don't have an additional mic. So is it okay? All right, I assume it's fine. I'll just continue projecting my voice. Okay, so I'm really honored and thankful to be one of the facilitators on this Thrive Hour community. All right, thanks so much, Sheila, for the feedback. Okay, so the volume is good, and I'm really thankful to be here. If you're watching this now or later, please once again donate if you can, if you're able to, at the link. I will probably post a link later in this comments section so you know where to go to donate, and all proceeds go to Beyond Social Services. All right, for today's session, what I'll do is I'll just briefly introduce the Tiger Moth review for those of you who are new to this journal and talk about the 5 poems I've included on the reading list. All right, so the Tiger Moth Review is a journal that I founded in 2018. It is an eco-conscious online journal that publishes poetry, photography, art, and prose on nature, culture, the environment, and ecology. And we publish twice a year, and we means me. So I do everything. And issue 4 was just released in May. So we pushed it early. It was supposed to be scheduled in July, but we decided to release it in May instead, so that people at home, right, can read and enjoy the issue. And I've included one poem from issue 4 today as well, and that is Thomas Bacon's Alaska, who's from Alaska, and he writes about the 4 seasons, and we'll read that in the very last, as the very last poem, as the concluding poem. All right, so I'll begin with reading the first poem, Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo. So Joy Harjo is the US Poet Laureate. She just got nominated a 2nd term, which is great. I love her very much. Her work is not in poetry, not in the Tiger Moth Review, but in Poetry Moves. So I can't really see myself in this video properly. Okay, yeah. So here, the book is here. It's published by Ethos Books. And I'm doing a bit of publicity here. So I co-edited this journal, and we can see this on page 120. But if you click on the link in the PDF, you will also be directed to the Poetry Foundation website. Okay, so I really love this poem because it's a poem, but it's also a prayer, and I think it's a great way for us to open ourselves to what Joy Harjo writes in the poem is the one whole voice that is you. So let's begin. Eagle Poem. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing, and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. All right, what a beautiful poem. So that was Joy Harjo's Eagle poem. It's one of my favorite poems, in fact. I found out about Joy Harjo from Boy Kim Cheng, who is my master's supervisor. So he introduced me to Joy Harjo, and I really love her work. I think for this poem especially, what I love is the use of imagery. In this case, the eagle circling, the reference to this one whole voice that is you. I think the knowledge that you are much more than just your physical body, you are also the earth. The focus on the breath and our connectedness to other living beings that breathe, right? All living beings breathe in their own way. And how it reminds us to be humble, to live and to die graciously, as she says in her poem, in beauty, in beauty. And this question comes to mind, which I thought I would share with you. I have goosebumps now as I speak, as I was reading the poem as well. How can I leave the earth better than before I came into existence? So think about it, and I would encourage you to read the poem again in your own time as well. If you just click on the link in the PDF, it will bring you to the Poetry Foundation website. You can read it and think about how it speaks to you. All right, so we'll move on to the next poem. Tree by Lee Soo-jin. So let me just click on this and that should open. Alright, so a bit about Lee Soo-jin. So Lee Soo-jin is actually a friend of mine. I met her at a creative writing class in NTU, Nanyang Technological University, last year. She is Korean and she is studying in Singapore. And the thing about her work is that she writes in English in her third language. So Korean is her first language, German is her second language, and English is her third language. So it's quite interesting when you read her work. And the southern land here in the poem refers to Singapore because Singapore is south of Korea. All right, I'll begin now. So this will bring you to the Tiger Moth Reviews website, and this is published. Her work is published in issue 3. Tree. The tree in the southern land is big. It grows much taller than in my home country. When I saw the trees out of the taxi window from the airport, first I was surprised by their scale, but soon I was relieved by their big green smiles, soothing the reluctance of my move from Korea to Singapore. The tree in the southern land is generous among the 5 elements in Ba Zi: tree, fire, earth, metal, and water. Tree means generosity, something I could not understand before. My understanding ceased at the sacrifice of trees. In Singapore, I first comprehended their generosity. When the wind blows, it moves gently. When the birds come, it holds out its arms and hairs. It welcomes also the small insects. It keeps being diligent with its own work, bearing flowers and fruits. Tree, you are comfort. You are the greatest philosopher. You remind me that you will live long and I will leave soon. You are big and I am small, yet you are kind to me. All right, so that was Soo-jin's poem. My favorite part of the poem is in fact the last stanza. Very similar to Harjo's poem. I think what I love about this poem is the speaker's recognition of her smallness in comparison to the tree's generosity and kindness. And I think about this question, how do we think about non-human others like trees? Have we ever stopped to consider how they keep being diligent with their own work, bearing flowers and fruits, according to Soo-jin's poem? And I think this question is also pertinent to us in Singapore with regard to our attitudes towards nature as existing to serve human needs, and rather than human beings living with gratitude towards our environment. So I think this is something that is relevant, okay? Something that we can consider. I see I have some questions in the comment section. Okay, so this is actually taken from the book is Poetry Moves. So for the benefit of those who just joined, Poetry Moves is published by Ethos Books. You can check out the website. On the PDF, I also have a link to the page, so you can buy it. You can just add it to cart if you like. And the other poems are from the Tiger Moth Review, which is an online journal that I edit based in Singapore. All right, so we are kind of halfway through now. I hope we are making good time, or maybe moving a little fast. All right, the third poem is quite special. Well, all the poems are special, but the third poem is I think extra special because Vinita Agrawal, who is the poet, she mentioned that she is going to be watching. So if you're watching, Vinita, hello. Hi from Singapore to India, I believe. This is a poem, I Tell the River That I Shall Pray Again. I'm very honored to have Vinita here with us to listen to the reading of the poem. All right, so I hope she will enjoy my rendition of her poem. Okay, let me just click on it to bring it up. Okay, here we go. I tell the river that I shall pray again. For years, I've been trading promises with God, offering flowers for mercies, fasts for protection, money for more wealth. And now, it's not as if I've stopped praying, but something's muted over the years. When I fold my hands at the altar, I'm thinking the flowers in the vase need to be changed. The brand of incense leaves too much ash. The silver needs polishing. The frames need dusting. Cremating you and returning to the raven blackness of our home, I fastened the urn of ashes to a clothesline outside the house because it was bad omen to carry it inside. Nothing epitomizes waiting more than a boat on the shore or an urn of warm ashes tied to a tree or a clothesline. The river is the end to the wait, the final quencher of thirst. Tonight, I lie porous. Tomorrow, the river will consume the ashes and fill me with prayers again. All right, so that was Vinita's I Tell the River That I Shall Pray Again. All right, it's a bit of a heavier poem. It's about grief and the loss of a loved one. But what I love about it is its tenderness, the speaker's tenderness, vulnerability, and the allusion as well to the river as the final quencher of thirst. The river as mother, as a tender mother who is able to permeate our senses and to flow through us if we let her. If, like the speaker, we lie porous. So I really love that reference, that metaphor, right? Lie porous, to allow her to wash away our grief and suffering. And so if you are going through any kind of personal grief, pain or suffering, I encourage you to write about it, to find your own healing, just like how the speaker here finds her healing in the river. All right, from the river, we move to the mountains. So the next poem, the second last poem, is The Climb by DiZazzo, who is from the United States of America. This was published in issue 2, so Vinita's work was published in issue 2 as well, on page 45, and DiZazzo's work is on page 31 of this issue. So it brings us to higher altitudes in the mountains. I think this is also quite special because not many people, I myself have not gone ice mountain climbing, and I think not many people would also have this privilege of being able to do so. So this will be quite an experience for you, I believe. So let's listen to The Climb by DiZazzo. For Sean. There is a way of breathing known to those who've walked to the sky on stones and ice. A way of opening the lungs in the face of clouds and gasping in their whiteness. There is a way of premonition in the jagged bend of a blue crevasse, of panic boiling in the blood at 20,000 feet, of grace in boot-print mud, drying on the peak of an impossible summit. Yeah, so a really short poem by DiZazzo, right? But I love it so much. Every time I read it, it teaches me to breathe. It teaches me to open my lungs, as the poem says, to the speaker's experience of ice mountain climbing. Yeah, and I think that the poet also makes this experience accessible, enables the reader to share in the speaker's changing feelings of premonition, of panic, and finally of grace. It allows me to inhabit the sublime in a way, something that is beautiful and terrible at the same time, awe-inspiring and also death-defying, to leave the confines of Singapore to climb up 20,000 feet to an impossible summit that was made possible through the poem. And that adrenaline, I do feel that rush of adrenaline as I read the poem, and even now talking about the poem. So I'm really thankful to DiZazzo for sending in this work to the journal. And the moment I read it, I wanted to say the moment I met it. Yes, I met this poem, right? This poem is an experience of its own. So the moment I read and met this poem, I knew I wanted to include it in this issue, and I'm so glad I did. All right, so we've gone on quite a ride. We started with Salt River with the eagle in indigenous land. So Joy Harjo is a Muskogee Creek Nation's writer, poet. We went to Singapore, Tree, right, and by Lee Sujin. We went to the river with Vinita, Agrawal. We went to the mountains, and now we will end with the 4 seasons. So I think it's quite a nice apt ending. It brings us full circle in terms of the seasons, and it's something we experience very differently in Singapore because we live in a tropical climate. In terms of form, the poem is comprised of 4 lyrics, 1 for each season. So I will have to pull it up, so just give me some time to type it out, because I don't have this on a link not yet, because this is published in an e-issue. So if you go to our website, the Tiger Moth Review, on the home page there is issue 4. Just click on e-issue, and then the PDF will show up, and scroll down, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm scrolling down to page 54 to get Thomas Bacon's The 4 Seasons, and here we have it. Okay, so I'll end this session with this poem, The 4 Seasons, and this refers to the 4 seasons in Alaska. All right, the 4 seasons. Spring blooms purple crocuses, and whales breach the sunlight. Passion and play. Eagles soar in thermals over new nests, circles of thought returning to the first letter of the first word. A poem, unwritten, waiting for coffee to cool, or a leaf to shake the breeze to enchantment's end. Summer breaks blue with billows of thunder, filling an expectant field, overfull with thrush songs and the sweetness of a Sitka rose. Rain drifts from the sea, slow to arrive. In the shed, the rake, shovel, and hoe rust, waiting for less lazy days as garden weeds celebrate reprieve. Green grows abundant. As promised, life's bounty returns. Autumn splashes orange, a pumpkin tethered to a leathered vine, a leaf turning on a brittle twig, and the sun cooling down into the sea. Watchful eyes of the harvest moon, the crows have flown far away to richer feasts beyond the frost. Firewood stacked cord by cord, and pantry stocked can by can. The salmon have spawned. Gulls pick the remaining bones. Sweet smells of decay cloy the air. Winter gathers white fog, sheens of collected mist chilling life's facade. As the earth freezes inside leaf litter and mold, some seeds will survive the sharpness of cold winds carving silence, sculpted shadows in the ice. Snow-covered branches, a flock of mallets swims near. Ripples Bend the Light. Alright, so that was Thomas Bacon's The Four Seasons, published in issue 4, the latest issue of the Tiger Moth Review, page 54 to 55. I really love how this poem introduces readers to place specific imagery, in this case Alaska. I've never been to Alaska and I really want to go to Alaska right now. How each season is different, given a different personality or mood without privileging one over another. And I think if you had been following from the very first poem, Eagle poem, you also noticed that there were certain similarities. So in Eagle poem, Joy Harjo writes about the eagle circling, right? That is actually the main image in the poem. And here in Spring, there is also a reference to the eagle circling in Thomas Bacon's work. So I do like that intertextuality, whether or not he's conscious of it. So the Alaska of the poem is rich with season-specific smells, sights, movements, animals, to reveal nature's enchantments and bounty. And what I think the line that stood out to me the most, of all the lines, I do love his poem very much, is the last line, ripples bend the light, right? So that the idea of that rippling and the bubbling and the sense that, you know what, it's not over. Something is going to happen. So it was very evocative for me, and it suggests that in time spring will return, and once again it would be privy to the cycle of the seasons. So that was Thomas Bacon's The Four Seasons. Yep. Okay, let's see some comments. Okay, so I think some people are really love the poems here. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, yeah, so nice. Okay, so actually, although we have come to the end of the first session, the first reading, Eco Poetry reading, and I want to thank you so much for your patience once again, wondering what's happening, what's up, you know, why is the video not running? Yes, it's me, I did not update my Google Chrome browser, but luckily I have a husband who is able to help me with that, so yes, he helped me with that. Okay, so I will be on time next week, I promise. I hope you enjoyed the poems and the brief discussion as well. I'm trained as a literature educator, so it's kind of an occupational hazard. I do have to talk about the poems that I read. I encourage you to return to them in your own time, to read them, to make meaning with them, you know, to have the work speak to you. And if you want to say something about it, you can write it in this, you know, in the comments in this video section. You could write to me, I'll be happy to reply. If you write poetry as well, this is where I put in my plug. Please consider submitting your work to the Tiger Moth Review. So you can just type in the Tiger Moth Review and then enter the website, click on submit to look at the submission details. We are actually accepting submissions for the next issue, issue 5, that will be published next January. Yeah, so I'll be here the same time next week at 10:30. I will be sure to test this way earlier so that I do not call Crystal and stress her out. Yeah, so we'll look at 5 more poems. If you can, once again, please donate to our beneficiary, Beyond Social Services. The money goes to needy families during this difficult time. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.